Everyone knows that salt makes food taste better, but did you know that acids are just as important when it comes to seasoning foods?
By the way, this is a lesson from ATK Classes on the America's Test Kitchen app and website. With ATK Classes, you'll get access to a wide variety of lessons filled with masterful techniques, helpful videos, and step-by-step photos. From knife skills and making hand-rolled pasta to baking and frosting incredible cakes, all taught by our expert instructors.
One of the most common forms of acid that we use all the time in the kitchen is fresh citrus. And specifically speaking about lemons and limes, which are high acid citrus fruits. We don't use orange and grapefruit usually in this way because they don't have the acidity to make that really nice punch. So I want to talk about these guys here. We're going to start with lemons, and I want to cut this lemon in half to show you that it's made up of really three important parts. So we have the interior here, and these are these beautiful little cells that are capturing all of that juice. When we squeeze a lemon wedge, they burst and it releases lemon juice inside. Lemon juice is wonderful. It's very acidic. It's very recognizable. We use it in so many different dishes, so it's got a lot of broad application. Sitting outside of that is a white layer. We call this layer the pith. There's a lot of kind of misinformation about the pith out there. A lot of people say that it's bitter, but if you were to take it out and just eat some of that white bitter pith, it actually doesn't have much flavor at all to it. The reason it gets bitter is actually when it's in contact with the peel here and there's aberration, so you're actually like rubbing it together, it produces a bitter compound. And then on the outside, the part that gives lemon its gorgeous yellow color is the zest or the peel. It's packed with these aromatic oils. When you talk about lemon flavor, it's really primarily here. There's a tiny bit in the juice, but if you're ever making a dessert and you want big lemon flavor, you have to get some of that zest in there. So those are the three big components that we find inside of a lemon. Now, limes have the same situation inside as well. You can see same story, same structure. Now, most of the time when we're working with citrus like this, we're adding it at the end of the cooking process or even after the food is finished cooking. And the reason for that is that all of that lemon flavor or lime flavor, it changes dramatically with heat. So we want that freshness, we want to add it right at the end. If you add it early in the process, it's going to totally change. So in order to do that, a lot of times we're making lemon wedges or nice kind of individual handheld versions of the lemon so that you can do it right on your own fish or everything that's like on your plate there. So there's a couple of fun ways to do this. There's actually a little more to cutting wedges and cutting these than kind of meets the eye. So let's look at a couple of different methods here. One that is a lot more popular nowadays, it was never something that I learned in culinary school or sort of when I was coming up, is cutting citrus cheeks. Instead of cutting right down the middle and then cutting wedges, you're off to the side here, so you're on kind of 1/3 of the fruit, and you just cut down. And what you get is this cute little citrus cheek. And it's really nice because you have no seeds in here for the most part. Most of the seeds are concentrated in the center of the fruit. It gives you a lot of control over how you squeeze this. It's not a skinny wedge. You get a lot of juice out of that. Just rains down juice. Kind of go back and forth like this at the end to make sure you get all of it out of there. So the cheek is adorable and also really functional. So let's say you want to do wedges a little more traditional, or you don't want to do the cheeks. I have a way that I really like to do it and I like to share it. It's simple, but a lot of times those small, simple things can make a big difference in the kitchen. So what I first do if I'm making wedges is I like to lop off a little bit from both ends. What this is going to do is when you actually pick up the wedge, it's going to give you kind of flat sides to hold on to, and then knock it in half like that. Now to cut your wedges, you can make them any size you want. It's kind of nice to start down the middle and you're just sort of dividing evenly. So I'm just gonna make this into 4 wedges. But before I would serve and use these, there's one more step that I like to do, and that is to put the lemon wedge down like this to take off any of the center core that sits there. That also gives you an opportunity to knock out any seeds. And then that is just a beautiful little lemon wedge. It's gorgeous to squeeze. You can see that I've got nice kind of handles on the side now. I'm gonna squeeze it. There's not gonna be any seeds in there. Beautiful. So that's a great lemon wedge. So if you're working with a lime, another nice cut that I like to do is I actually go down the center like this instead of the other way. After I've halved my lime this way, I will place it down, cut through the center that way, and you can see you have that beautiful shape right there. So I'll just cut this into 2 wedges. If you wanted to put this on a cocktail, simply drag your knife down the center. You've got a nice little spot there. Let's say this is my glass, and it pops on, and that's very pretty too. So citrus is both beautiful and functional. Fresh citrus, we like to use it at the very end of cooking so it doesn't cook, doesn't change its flavor. But you can also get really interesting, completely different flavors out of citrus if you do drying and fermenting steps. This first one here is a preserved lemon. So these are Moroccan preserved lemons, but you see them kind of all over North Africa, and they are incredibly aromatic, like lemon on steroids. It's really, really intense. It's floral. It brings out a lot of more complex lemon flavors, not just that bright lemon. And these are really cool. So they're packed with salt and some lemon juice, and they're left to ferment for quite a long time. Once they're done, they last for a really long time in the fridge. And so there's a bunch of different uses for these. You can throw, a whole half or a wedge or something like that into a stew or a tagine and let it cook. It's really, really complex. It's got acidity, obviously, but it's got tons of lemon flavor. There's a little bit of bitterness in there too, but it's kind of ingredient you can't replace with something else. It's really, really amazing. You can also take your knife and you can remove the interior. This is what's commonly done, where you actually take out the juicy bits on the inside and you just have the zest out here. Now we talked about all the aroma really being in that zest on the outside there. And so this is so packed with aroma. Oh, it smells absolutely incredible. I would add this to all kinds of things, to a salsa verde to add some acidity and some complexity to it. There's also juice that is in the jar when you buy these or when you make them. I use a little bit of that in vinaigrettes all the time, or to season up a dish at the very last minute. So another really interesting ingredient that uses citrus, but in a form that is not the fresh form that you're used to, are these Persian dried limes. I'm gonna crack this one open. Now you can see that they're black, so they've been fermented and dried. If I just hit it with my knife, I can open it up, and you can see this dried interior. It pulls in a lot of liquid, but if you add one of these to a stew and let it cook through, it's gonna absorb that moisture, soften, and then release tons of flavor into whatever you're cooking. And it is malty and rich and dark, but also limey. It's got tons of acidity. One cool trick that I learned with them that I don't believe is traditional, but is a really fun way to use them too, is to grab a rasp grater like this and actually grate it right onto a dish at the very end. You can see you get this sort of fine, almost looks like black pepper, and you get this hit. Wow. It's bright, it's acidic, it has all of that depth and complexity, it's super floral. So that's another really great use of it. So we know and love citrus. Hopefully we know a little bit more about it now. And from a beautiful fresh piece of citrus like this, I have this lemon cheek here for this gorgeous piece of swordfish. Ooh, that looks good. Let's give this a try. It's so good. This is really, really simple. This is a fatty piece of fish that's been seared really nicely. There's salt, there's pepper, and that lemon juice at the very end adds so much sharpness, brings everything into focus in the same way that, salt makes the food taste more like itself. This lemon does the same thing here. And so whether you're working with fresh, like this gorgeous lemon juice that we're squeezing on here, fermented, dried citrus, there's a whole world to it. And that, even just that, is one small part of how you season with acids. One of my favorite groups of acids to work with is the world of vinegar. And I say the world because it actually is a pretty broad category. And I have a number of vinegars here, ones you probably know quite well. I have red wine vinegar, apple cider. I've got some champagne vinegar here as well, some sherry vinegar, which is one of my faves. And what's really interesting about vinegar is it's made through a two-part process. And the first part is actually fermentation to make alcohol. So if you have something like sweet grape juice, yeast get involved and they create alcohol, and then you have red wine, say, right? And from that red wine, then you are primed to make vinegar out of it. So there is an acetic acid bacteria or acetobacter that gets involved, and it converts the alcohol into acetic acid. And acetic acid is the acid that is in vinegar. So with citrus fruits, a lot of times it is citric acid, a little bit of malic acid. Acetic acid is very particular to vinegar. It's part of the process, it's sort of a byproduct of that process I just talked about there. What's really interesting about acetic acid is it's very savory acid. We think of it as going so well with savory food, but it is also incredibly volatile. So volatility just basically means at what temperature something will sort of boil and evaporate into the air. And acetic acid is very light. These molecules are very, very light. So they will come up without any heat at all, just at room temperature. They will burst into the air. And if you put your nose over it, you get this hit of aroma. That is acetic acid hitting your nose. That is not the case for other acids. If you had a solution of just citric acid and you smelled it, you'd really smell nothing at all. So that volatility does a couple of things. One is it makes it so we really smell vinegar. So it fills the air and it entices us to try those foods. If you think about some buffalo wings or something like that, there's that aroma wafting from them that is really, really bright and acidic. So that's really interesting. It also means though that you can't reduce vinegar and concentrate that acid. So let's say you had some white distilled vinegar and you wanted to make it twice as acidic, and you put it over heat and you started cooking it and reducing it down. During that process, you're driving tons of acetic acid out of it. So it's actually gonna be milder by the time you've reduced it down. And that is not the case with something like wine. If you cook wine down, the tartaric acid in there is not volatile, so it stays in there. That's why you can cook wine down and really, really concentrated, and it keeps that acidity really nicely. So it's just kind of an unusual and interesting quality of vinegars that they're very aromatic. So I have some of my favorites over here, and they're named after a lot of the alcohols that they come from. And they usually force the process in commercial production by using what is called a mother. So this is like a thin film of the acetic acid bacteria. You introduce it, and it quickly converts the alcohol into acetic acid. But you don't need that mother. You don't need to force that process. You've probably experienced this yourself. You have a bottle of red wine. Let's say you put the bottle aside and it's like next week and you open it up and you go drink it and it's really tart. That process has already started on its own because that acetic acid bacteria is in the air. It easily gets in the wine. And so you can easily make your own vinegars at home. You can make red wine vinegar, champagne vinegar, you name it. What's really interesting is that first alcohol that you start with, the character that that alcohol has transforms into the vinegar that you have here. So they're all really, really unique and different. For instance, one of my favorites is sherry vinegar. Sherry vinegar is made from sherry, which itself is a really complex alcohol. It goes through this fascinating fermentation process where it develops tons of rich, really savory, sort of nutty flavor. And so sherry vinegar captures all of that. So you get the acidity, you have the character of the original alcohol. Okay, so let's transition over here to actually using it to season our food. So it's gonna bring acidity. We know that, the same it would with citrus juice or anything like that, but it's also gonna give that wonderful savory aroma as well. So I have a really simple soup here. This is a white bean soup, but you can give it a really rich new life by seasoning with vinegar. So I wanna talk about tasting for seasoning and then adjusting. We'll go a little bit deeper here than we normally do. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna designate a spoon that I'm gonna use in the soup, and then I'm gonna have a tasting spoon. This way I can taste the soup over and over again without actually dipping my used spoon into the soup. So let's take a taste here. I'm gonna taste for acidity, salt, any other ingredients that I think it needs. So I just put that on there. It's really nice. It's got some aromatics in there. The beans are creamy, and it needs a little something to kind of elevate it to the next level. So I've got a little bit of vinegar over here. And when I add it to something hot, you're really gonna smell it. So I'm gonna add a little bit. You can always add more. It's very hard to take it out. Give it a stir with my pot spoon, and let's take another taste. That's good. It's definitely starting to wake up. It's got something to balance out the fat and the richness and sort of that starchy richness to the dish. It's so easy to go too far with acid, and then you get something that is really sour. And it might be fine on a spoon, but as you're eating a bowl of it, it's a little bit too intense. So I like to go under that level. I want something that adds brightness, that makes it so it's a little bit refreshed after each spoon. And this feels like it's in the perfect spot. It really is sort of a cook's secret weapon there. And this is just one more way that we can use acids to make our food taste really, really good. So all of the acids we've talked about to this point share one common trait, and that is that acidity comes along with a lot of liquid. So whether it's citrus juice or vinegar, you're adding water to a recipe at the same time that you're adding that acidity. For the most part, that's great. Whether we're seasoning a stew or putting it on top of a piece of fish, it totally works. But there are instances where that water can actually be problematic. Or something you want to keep really crispy, you don't want to add water to it. And so that's where dry acids come into play. Now, I have two here that are quite different from one another, but actually are relatively easy to find in the supermarket. The first one is citric acid. Now, you're actually likely to find this in the canning section of your supermarket because it is a common ingredient in canning. It allows you to adjust the pH to just the right level to keep your canned food safe, but it has broad use beyond that. And then the second one is sumac. And this is very different than citric acid here. This is actually comes from a berry that is dried and ground, and it has an incredible, beautiful acidity to it, along with a really nice floral quality as well. So this is used in the Eastern Mediterranean and a lot of different cuisines. It's really wonderful, but it's a lot more available now at supermarkets. So I'm gonna try both of them and we'll talk through kind of what they taste like. Now you don't need a lot. A little bit of citric acid goes a long way. Has no aroma to it. So this is not like acetic acid that we find in vinegar. It has no real aroma. Wow. Even that little bit is like puckery, bright acidity. You know, if you love sour candies, sweet candies that have a sour coating, you know exactly what this tastes like. It punches really, really hard. It doesn't necessarily taste like citrus. It doesn't have the aromatic oils that you find in the peel or any of that other character, but it has the acidity that you expect from citrus. So it hits really quickly, and then it also fades really fast. So it's wonderful. It's not gonna add any other flavor to it. It's nice to have these ingredients like salt that just do one specific thing and they don't influence other aspects of it. So that's our citric acid. Now let's try our sumac. I have a little bit extra on this one. It's way less acidic than the citric acid, right? It's got mellow acidity that sort of builds. It doesn't just hit hard and retract. It kind of builds over time. but it's almost got a fruitiness to it that's like a prune plum kind of quality. So you get fruitiness plus all of this nice acidity. So it brings a lot to the table here. You should stock them in your home. And I really encourage people to think of dry acids in the same way they do sugar and salt, MSG, all these things that you can have kind of by your oils as ways to season your food through the process or at the end and have maximum control. So I want to show you in practice how a dry acid can be really, really useful. And for that, I have these freshly fried tortilla chips. So you can see they're still glistening with oil. We've blotted them dry on this paper towel here, and I'll transfer them to this nice big bowl. Beautiful. Now, if I poured a bunch of citrus juice on here or vinegar, you guys know exactly what would happen. They would sog out the chips and we'd lose that beautiful crunch. But when we add some dry acid, that won't be the case. I'm gonna go with citric acid here. Instead of having that sumac flavor profile, I just want that hit of acidity. And we're just gonna do a light sprinkle and a toss. So you had this sort of hint of lime chips. This is kind of hitting in that direction, but we can take it to a whole nother level. We're gonna use a little bit of salt. Gotta have salt on chips. And then I'm just gonna use a little pinch of cayenne. So we're gonna have salt, acidity, chili. It's like a good margarita. It's like so many different good things. So let's try one of these. That is so good. That beats the pants off of like any store-bought chip that you buy. And you can totally customize this. So you could use more acidity, make them really, really bright. You can get a little MSG in there for that savory kick that you get in so many store-bought chips, but it really allows you a ton of flexibility. And it's another reason that acids can add so much to food, and dry acids open up a whole new world. So whether you reach into your fridge for a nice lemon or lime, or into your pantry for a bottle of vinegar that you love, or even the dry acids that you're gonna keep right next to your salt and pepper, I hope you see that the world of acids is huge, and by harnessing it, you can make your food bright, beautiful, and really delicious. Happy cooking.
Now that you're on a roll, why not take the next step? Go to americastestkitchen.com/classes or download the America's Test Kitchen app to start learning with ATK classes today.